Good morning, Willowbrook. Today our devotional is in Exodus chapter 14, and we're going to look at the parting of the Red Sea. The Israelites were trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army. God led them into the valley and brought them intentionally to this specific place. And here they were caught between the mountains and the sea. And Pharaoh thought that the Israelites had made a mistake. You know, when you're hurting, confused, ready to give up, hope, God tells us and reminds us that He's with us. God has shown Himself to be a redeemer and fighter for those who follow Him. God makes the way even when there is no way. When we're at the end of our hope, we've just reached the beginning of God's and God's ways. That's a win for us and for God. And when God told them in verse 15 to be where they were, He was saying, keep moving forward. Don't stay where you are and look for your own way. God's always traveling with us. It is very comforting to know that the Lord goes before us. When you feel lonely, when things are going wrong, the promise is that the Lord goes with us. Step out on faith, and the Lord is going to go ahead of you, and the Lord will be behind you. You know, God showed Himself in the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire. You know, that's something that He does and tells us that He's going to be with us to the end of the earth. Sometimes we take the presence of God in our lives for granted. We take His grace lightly. But every day, if we're willing to open our eyes, we'll see the miraculous work of God all around us. God told the Israelites to look up and to see that He's fighting for them. Pharaoh, he took his best chariots, all his officers and fighting army, 600 chariots. They followed after the Israelites boldly. And the Israelites and the Egyptians knew, the Egyptians were marching out after them. You know, so many times we can think that, kind of think like the Israelites, that we are very satisfied in being in bondage to sin and being defeated by it on a regular basis. But we serve a marvelous, miraculous God. He's the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. He is the God of victory, and He is the Lord over our mountaintops and valleys of life. God knew what the Israelites were going through, and He had a plan. You know, as we struggle to live the Christian life in this day and age, God knows our problems. He knows our failures. He knows our needs. When we struggle with depression or illness or doubt or fear or loneliness or any other problem in our lives, then we must see and not doubt that God has a plan. Pharaoh with 600 mighty men of war. The Israelites untrained and unarmed. It was very natural that they would have fear, but they forgot to also have faith. Look up and see that the Lord is fighting for you. Even Pharaoh's soldiers said Yahweh is fighting for the Israelites, and they were panicking. You know, when God is fighting for you, He fights to win complete victory. He's going to deal with the Egyptian army so that they are never going to forget what happened and never bother His children again. And when He fights for you, He fights for complete victory over the things that keep us in bondage. Remember, no weapon that is formed against you shall prosper. And every tongue that accuses you in judgment, you will be condemned. If God is for us, who can be against us? So we must trust Him. God parted the Red Sea. The challenge for Israel was not to be afraid and to stand firm. On this day, Israel's going to learn the power of God into trusting God at all times. And Pharaoh's going to learn there's only one true God. The sea parted into two huge walls of water. Look at the miracles of God. Water becoming walls, trained soldiers losing a battle to one that's untrained. Israel is going through the walls of the Red Sea on dry ground, and they took with them the plunder of Egypt. And God provided the light before them and the darkness and chaos behind them for the Egyptians. We may not be doing things right sometimes. You may think you're not, but actually you're doing exactly what God asked you to do, and you still have problems and difficulties. That's when we have to pray and listen for the voice of God. Then we have to be faithful to do what God asks us to do, because God goes before us. When God is traveling with us, He is our light and He brings the light into the darkness of the things that we do not understand, and He turns the darkness of our despair into the light of hope. I don't know what you face today. I do know this. God's never going to leave you or forsake you. Greater is He that is in us than he that's in the world. Do not be afraid. Whatever God asks us to do, no matter what we face while doing what God asks us to do it faithfully. Be obedient. There's no better place to be than to be on the winning team. And the good work that God has begun in you, He's going to be faithful until the day of completion. God bless you, Willowbrook. I pray that you'll have the best week that you've ever had. And then in your faithfulness, God will grant you many more.